Okay, we are going to do 5.2. This is the trigonometry chapter. In 5.1, we kind of looked at three questions that dealt with sine, cosine, and tangent. And we came up with the mnemonic SOHCAHTOA. Now, SOHCAHTOA means this. The sine of theta is the opposite side divided by the hypotenuse. Okay? The cosine of theta is the adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse. And the tangent of theta is the opposite side divided by the adjacent. And this applies to right triangles. And that's a right angle. We label our angle theta. What would this side be called in reference to theta? A, the adjacent, and this one, opposite, and this one, the hypotenuse. What if I move theta to the other angle? So if I were to bump this over here and I were to look at that angle instead, what does that do to the sides of the triangle? The O and the A switch, but the H does not. H is always the longest side. Okay. Well, that's only half the story, really. So, using theta, I can make ratios by dividing O by H, and A by H, and O by A. But are those the only divisions I can do? What else could I do? Well, look at the side, the triangle. So I did O divided by H, and O divided by A, and A divided by H. I could do H over O, and H over A, and A divided by O. So SOHCAHTOA only covers 3 of the 6. The other 3 are called cosecant, secant, and cotangent. There are 6 right triangle trig ratios that exist. And sine, cosine, and tangent are the ones that you dealt with last year and in years past. But now that you're big kids, we get to deal with cosecant, secant, and cotangent. Okay? Well, cosecant is abbreviated CSC, and cosecant is the reciprocal of the sine, H over O. And the secant is abbreviated SEC, and it is the reciprocal of the cosine, which would be H over A. And then the cotangent is abbreviated COT, and that ratio is A divided by O, which is the reciprocal of tangent. Now, how do you remember this? Write it down, take a picture, all things that you can't use on a test. So, the sine is linked to the cosecant, and the cosine is linked to the secant. So on the left side, if it has a co, it does not have a co on the right side. If on the left side it doesn't have a co, then the right side does. All right? Okay. So if I had a right triangle, and I labeled the sides, the angles A and B, and let's do our 3, 4, 5 triangle. What is the cosine of B? Cosine of B equals, well, the cosine is adjacent divided by hypotenuse, so that would be 4/5. That's a review of what we've already done. Okay, what about the cotangent of A? So cotangent is going to be the upside down version of TOA. So it would be, we're looking at angle A. The A side would be 3, and the O side would be 4. You guys understand that? All right, what about the cosecant of B? The cosecant is going to be the reciprocal of SO. And if we're looking at angle B, we would do H divided by O, which is 5/3. Does that make sense? Okay, what about the secant of B? Secant does not have a co, which means it's going to be the opposite of the ca. And cosine would be A divided by H. So secant would be H divided by A. And we're looking at angle B, so it would be 5/4. Does that make sense? All right. Oh, sorry. What? So cotangent is A over O. And so if I did the cotangent of A, if we looked here, this would be A and this would be O. All right, let me bring your assignment over. It's coming. Hang on. Here we go. All right. So to solve this, I need to figure out what number goes here. So I use Pythagorean theorem. In A squared plus B squared equals C squared, which side am I missing?
Teachers, would you please send the cheerleaders and drill team members to the little theater for COVID-19?
So A, B, or C? A or B, it doesn't matter. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So A squared plus 3 squared equals 8 squared. A squared plus 9 equals 64. Subtract 9, and I get A squared equals 55. Take the square root, and I get the square root of 55. Everybody okay with that? Now we've been told this is theta, so let's do the tangent. What would the tangent? Oh, let's not do that one. Let's do the cosine first. Cosine. So what is the cosine of theta? It would be the square root of 55 divided by 8. Does everybody understand that? So it says give exact values, not decimal approximations. So we do not want the decimals, we want the answers with the square roots. And there's actually a reason for that, which won't make any sense to you right now, but there is a reason why we prefer those. Okay, now let's do tangent. It's a little bit harder. What would tangent equal? Make sure you pay attention to this, because this isn't something you're just going to figure out on your own. What is the tangent of theta? Where's your mask, man? That's okay. So it's going to be 3 divided by the square root of 55. Now, does anybody remember the rule about square roots in the bottom? You cannot have square roots in the bottom. I mean, you can, but we don't. So we have to fix this so that the square root is not in the bottom. And the fix is really easy. Okay? You move this to the top, and then you leave 55 on the bottom. So you do 3 square root 55 over 55. Okay? But you do have to be a little bit careful. What if I had 4 over the square root of 6? What would that equal? It would be 4 square root 6 over 6. Now what? Does 4 over 6 simplify? Yes. It ends up being 2 root 6 over 3. Okay? All right. Cosecant. Which ratio does cosecant match up with? So the cosecant matches up with the sine. And sine is O divided by H. So cosecant would be H divided by O. If this is my angle, H divided by O would be 8/3. Do you need to see another one of those? Yeah? Okay. All right. Here we have 7 squared plus b squared equals 8 squared. 49 plus b squared is 64. Minus 49. B squared equals, what is that? 15? So b is the square root of 15. Oh, sorry, I went way too fast. I apologize. Maybe I'll get it. I don't know what's going on. Sorry. I'll just have to do it the old-fashioned way. So 7 squared plus b squared is 8 squared. Does that make sense? So that would be 49 plus b squared equals 64. Subtract the 49 over, and I get b squared equals 15. And then you just take the square root, and we get b equals the square root of 15. Does that make sense? Okay. Thanks for asking. I won't. Sometimes I just sprint when I shouldn't. So this is the square root of 15. Okay. Let's do the cosine first. SOHCAHTOA would make cosine equal to 7/8. That one wasn't bad. Okay, let's do the secant. Secant is going to be the cosine upside down. Cosine is a over h, so the secant will be h over a. That would be 8 over 7. Okay, and then the cotangent. Tangent is o over a, so the cotangent would be a divided by o, which would be 7 over the square root of 15. But I can't leave it like that. So what do? I write the root 15 on top, and then the 15 on bottom. And that's my answer. Okay. Now for the next step. Here we have a partial triangle, but this time we have an angle and a side, and we're trying to find a missing side. What is the name of the side that I do have? What's the name of this side? H. What is the name of the side that I want to have? Okay, that's for, in the Pythagorean theorem, it would be A or B, but in trig, we call it adjacent. Right? So, which trig ratio uses A and H? If I were to write out SOHCAHTOA, which one uses A and H? The cosine. So in this case, the cosine of 51 degrees is equal to x over 20. How do I solve for x? Multiply both sides by 20. Good. So multiply by 20. These cancel. And that means that the side length of x is 20 times the cosine of 51, which is great news. We have a formula to figure out missing sides if I have two sides. We also have a formula to find a missing angle if I have two angles. But trigonometry allows us to mix angles and sides, which is something we could never do before. So in our calculators, we type in 20 cosine 51. You have to make sure that your calculators are in degrees or you're going to get the wrong answer. So in my calculator, I push mode and I have the degree button. And every calculator is different, but every calculator will do degrees and radians. We want to choose degrees. So 20 sine of 51, and I get 15.5. Okay, now I want to show you something. Let's change this triangle just a little bit. Okay, instead of 20 and x, what if I had 10 and x? But they were in different places. I'm still going to use the cosine. The cosine of 51 is equal to 10 over x. How do you solve that? Can I just divide by 10? No, if I divide by 10, then my x is still in the denominator. Okay, so everybody pay attention to this. All you do is switch places with those. And we have x equals 10 over the cosine of 51. In every single right triangle problem where you're missing a side, one of two things will happen. Either you'll end up with a problem like this, x over 20. The solution method is multiply by 20. Or you'll end up with something that looks like this, 10 divided by x. The solution method is to switch the trig ratio and the x. So we're going to refer to these as multiply problems or switch problems. There is no other type. That covers everything. Okay, let's go to the next one. Sorry. Okay. This is my angle. Maybe. That's my angle. What two sides am I dealing with? O and H. Which ratio uses O and H? Sine. The sine of 34 is x over 11. Is that a multiply or a switch problem? And how do we get the x by itself? In this case, all we have to do is multiply by 11. And my answer is 11 sine of 34. So I just go to my calculator. 11 sine of 34. 6.15. Okay, let's go to the next one. Well, okay, we'll do this one. What two sides am I dealing with? O and A. Which trig ratio uses O and A? Tangent. The tangent of 69 is x over 16. Is that a multiply or a switch problem? That is a multiply problem. So I times by 16. And my answer, I'll just plug in my calculator, 16 tangent of 69. Okay, one more. What if my x was here? Never mind. Let's not do this one. Let's go to another one. No. 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 Maybe I'll find one that I like. Nope. I'm just gonna draw my own. Okay. So we're gonna get rid of these numbers. And we're gonna say x and 27. What two sides do I have? O and H. So which trig ratio do I need to choose? Sine. The sine of 70 is 27 over x. Is that a multiply or a switch problem? Switch problem, so I swap those. And I get x equals 27 over the sine of 70. So 27 divided by the sine of 70. And I get 28.7. So does 28.7 seem reasonable? Well, this has to be the biggest side, right? So does putting 28.7 there seem reasonable? Yeah, it's bigger than the 27. And in fact, 70 is the angle that creates 27, and 90 is the angle that creates x, and 90 is a little bit bigger than 70, and 28.7 is a little bit bigger than 27, so that makes sense. So you should be able to reason with your answers and say that answer makes sense or it's totally outrageous. Okay, work on 5.2. Good luck.